Welcome to the Black Educated Tea podcast where we have conversations on how Black women navigate through life and education. I'm your host, Makeda Marine. I'm a life coach and strategic consultant. In this safe space and in this podcast, we have conversations on how we balance and navigate through life, education, corporate America, entrepreneurship, motherhood, love, just so many topics. It's just endless. Please join us for the Black Educated Tea podcast so you can be a part of these magnificent conversations. Welcome to the Black Educated Tea podcast. I'm your host, Makeda Marie, and today's topic is representation matters. But, as always, before we get into the tea, let's get into the tea. So I am drinking a Sweet Dreams tea because I need to relax and I need to get some rest and go to bed. So that's what I am drinking, Sweet Dreams tea, and it has really a lot of relaxing properties in it. So it has lavender in it, it has chamomile in it, it has orange, lemon peel, peppermint, and it's really like a very minimum melatonin, I would say. So I absolutely love Sweet Dreams tea by Oasis Vibe, and it's really good when you just want to relax, when you want to go to sleep, if you want to get your mind right, just let all the stressors of today go and just be. So that is what I am drinking, Sweet Dreams tea. So I want to talk about representation matters. So, and one reason why I want to talk about this because a lot of my topics are, they could be trendy. And some of my topics also, when I'm just reading something and something just pops up. And that topic popped up and I never realized like how much it meant for me when you think of representation. Because, and looking back on my life, 20, past years ago, I never realized how much representation really mattered to me until I was reading something. I was like, you know what? It really does matter because it has influenced me. It has affected me. When there is representation that looks like me, it usually influences me. And then when there's not, there's a lack of influence, or so it definitely it matters. And I think for me, my biggest representation was probably back in high school when I would see teachers that looked like me, that were, poised and full of grace. And that's probably when my representation started in some ways. But, of course, it started way before then with family members, my mom, my grandma. So it started way before then. But I definitely probably started to notice it more when I got into, high school, and I started to see Black women that looked like me, that were teaching me. And they were teaching me things that I needed to know, needed to learn. And so that's when representation really started to matter. And then as I got into college, there was a lack of representation. Honestly, I just have to be honest. And it made it kind of difficult in certain classes that I would take, or, certain things I would do in college when there was a lack of representation. I would get excited when I would take a class, or I'll enroll for a class and then find out when I went, because I didn't find out until like the day it was time to go to class who my teacher was. You would get the syllabus and all of that, but I didn't know who my teacher was before until I physically walked into that class that day. And then when I would walk into the class and see, oh man, I got a Black teacher. I got a young Black teacher. She looked like me. I would get really excited. And I would just be so in tune into what she had to say. And this is no disrespect, or this is nothing against anyone else, but representation does matter. It really does. Because for me, I was able to sit back in class and look up and see, even as an adult in college, someone that looked like me. So I was so in tune into what she had to say. And, especially I took an African American studies class. Absolutely loved the class because the teacher, you can tell she had been doing this for 20 plus years. So she was really knowledgeable on African American studies. So she was able to just give us all this information. But it felt good to see someone look like me actually teaching this to me. So representation does matter, no matter what we're doing. When you are in a certain field or career, it's a good feeling to see someone that looks like you that's doing it. Whether it's tennis and you see Serena Williams that's doing it. It feels good to see someone that looks like you. If you're going to law school, it's a good feeling to see someone that's already a lawyer that's doing the same thing as you. For me, being a business owner, feels good to see so many other people that look like me that are pursuing their dreams and being business owners. So representation does matter. And it starts out at a really young age. I saw a video a while back. A little girl was probably like 2 years old, and she had a baby doll. And the baby doll looked just like her. Pretty curly hair, brown skin. The baby doll looked just like her. And just think how warm of a feeling that was for that 2 year old to have a doll that looks exactly like her. It's a good feeling. And it does so much to your self-esteem as well. When you see images, positive images that look like you, it does so much to your self-esteem. For me, that's why I wanted to get into education, because I saw these beautiful, gracious, and poised teachers. So that's why I actually wanted to get into education. And that's just how much representation does matter. Because when you see these images and you see people that look like you that are doing certain things, that can push you to also want to do it. So that pushed me into wanting to be a teacher and wanting to get into education. I ain't no teacher now, but I still love doing things in education, whether that's tutoring and mentoring and just doing all type of things in education, because I cannot seem to just let it go. You know how some things in life you can let it go, you can walk away from it. Education has been one of those things I just cannot walk away from. And it's because of the representation that I saw at a very young age. I was like, this is what I want to do. This is who I want to be. So it matters. No matter what field, what career, what you're doing, when you see others that look like you and they're doing it, you're like, you know what? I can do the same thing. She looks like me. He looks like me, and they're doing it. So I know that I can do it. And so even as an adult now, when I still see people my age and people that's older or even younger that's doing things that I strive to do, it's like, man, they look like me and they're doing it. So I know I can do it. We can do anything we put our minds to, but just having a representation, it matters. It matters in more ways than we probably think it does, because it influences us in so many ways. Positive representation too. Let's be real, because there's some representation out there we might not necessarily want to have any parts too, but that positive representation, it matters. It really matters when you see images and you see these things on the TV screen and magazines and books, and they look just like you. Like I said, we're out here doing it. We're out here making amazing strides, and we're doing amazing things with our lives. So we have so much representation around us. So let's focus more on the positive representation that's out there, because there's plenty of representation out there that looks like us, that's doing things that we want to do. Hopefully, I'm even a representation for somebody. That's always the ultimate goal. Hopefully, I'm representing myself in a way that I'm a representation and someone see what I'm doing, and I can be of a great influence for somebody, because that's the cycle of life. We all want to present and represent ourselves in a way that we can help others. So hopefully I'm at a point that I'm representing myself in a way and presenting myself that it is beneficial to somebody else. They're like, she's doing this, I can do that. She's doing this, so I can do that. So hopefully I'm also, while I'm still being immersed and just consumed by with everybody else and how their representation is influencing me, hopefully I'm influencing somebody as well. And I would just love to hear how you have been in those situations and those occurrences where you knew at that moment representation mattered for you and it changed the scope of your life. What was that moment? Was it, in high school? Was it in college? Or was it, once you even got to adulthood and you got into your career and your field? Or was it even as a small kid and you had that baby doll, or you saw an image on TV? At what moment did you realize that representation mattered for you? And for me, it is a lot of different things. It was high school, it was, being an adult in college, and it was seeing family and friends that looked like me that were doing certain things. So there was so much representation that I was surrounded by. Because there's not just one thing that changed the scope of my life. There were many, instances and many representations that, helped change me and helped me to know, like, man, they're doing it so I can do it. So what have just been those situations that you have encountered that you was like, man, you realize that representation did matter, because it does. And I would always just like to hear your comments, your stories, your thoughts. And this is the Black Educated Tea Podcast.